If you're inspecting the interior surface of your concrete pool and you've determined that it has a painted interior surface over top of an older concrete-based or mortar-based interior surface, the next step is to determine what kind it has. Now, there's three primary paints that you're going to find on the interior surface of the pool, and depending on which one you have, that will indicate what your potential recourse is in the event that you need a new interior surface. A lot of times people try to use the interior surface paint as a band-aid solution because they can't afford the true solution, which is to reline the interior surface with marcite or marbleite or plaster or something like that. It's fairly expensive to do. So quick and easy is to paint it. But if you choose the wrong paint, or if somebody in the past has chosen the wrong paint, then you're going to need to strip that all away. And that's what you're looking for, is try to determine the overall condition. You know, how many times has this pool been painted over the years? Does it look pristine? Does it look perfect? I mean, that's what you're looking for. Or does it look like there's multiple layers of different colors of paint and they're chipping and peeling away and delaminating and cracking? And that's a real concern, because if I see that, I mean, you can't just go in and clean the interior surface and paint it again. You need to strip that all away. And if you need to strip that all away, the only real way to do that is mobile sandblasting. And mobile sandblasting is very expensive, very messy. It's an inconvenience to you and your neighbors usually, but it's just a big cost. And that's going to take you down to bare concrete so that you can put a new interior surface in it. Usually after you have a sandblast, the two options are to use a new marbleite or plaster interior surface, or to use a high build epoxy. And the reason why you would use a high build epoxy is just so that when you sandblast it, you're going to be left with a really rough finish, nothing even approaching smooth. And if you just took a low build paint like acrylic and just rolled it over there, you're going to see every last bump. You're going to feel every bump. It's not going to be waterproof. You're not going to be able to, or water resistant at all. You're not going to be able to paint it properly. It needs to be smooth. And that's why if you do a sandblast and you're left with a really rough interior surface, then you need to go with a high build epoxy, or you need to go with an actual cement-based product such that you can make it smooth again. So if you're trying to determine what you have, let's say that you've only got one layer of paint, but you want to know what it is. Well, how do you tell? That's a big question, because if you get them wrong and you put, let's say you put an epoxy paint over a rubber paint, you're going to have a bad time. So the first thing you need to know is that the main kinds are acrylic. Acrylic is just a water-based paint. It's like paint you'd put on a wall. It's very thin. It shows everything underneath. It has a short service life. It's not very costly to buy, and it's pretty easy to install. So you see that a lot in pools that need to be painted yearly, like commercial pools that need to be painted yearly. You see that pretty often. So you could have an acrylic paint, or you could have, there's two kinds of rubber paint. Rubber is kind of the second one, but in that second example, there's two kinds of rubber. There's the synthetic rubber and there's chlorinated rubber. Both are less common than they used to be. So if you're dealing with an older swimming pool, there's a higher likelihood that it has a rubber-based paint. If you have a newer swimming pool, there's a lower likelihood it has a rubber-based paint. The third style of paint is epoxy-based paint. So the three styles overall, basically the only way that you're going to really be able to tell the difference, unless you're an interior surface specialist, is you're going to have to use solvents, and you're going to have to test the paint and see what it is. And by testing it, basically what I'm saying is if you had a piece of exposed pool surface that was cleaned first and washed and then dried, you would do a surface test with 3 different solvents. You would use denatured alcohol on a cotton swab, and you would wipe that on the interior surface. And if nothing happened, then if that denatured alcohol starts to wear away the surface and it just wipes away and basically starts to make that surface sticky again, then that's an indication that's acrylic paint. The denatured alcohol is a solvent for the acrylic water-based paint. If you have a rubber-based paint, then the solvent for that is going to be acetone or xylene. Either one will give you the same result, where again you wipe it on now a different area of the pool paint, and if it after 3, 4, 5 swipes with a cotton ball with that on it, with some xylene on it or with some acetone on it, the paint becomes soft and starts to loosen up and wipe away and the color strips away, that's an indication that you've got a rubber-based paint because the xylene or the acetone is dissolving it. And finally, if you have an epoxy-based paint, the solvent that you would use for that is MEK, or methyl ethyl ketone. It's a very noxious chemical, something that you can probably still get from paint stores or specialty chemical suppliers. Not something you really want to deal with unless you have to, and probably not something you have laying around. The closest thing that you have around the average house is probably PVC primer. If you have a can of PVC primer, there's MEK in that, and you could use that. Or you could just use a process of elimination and do the other two tests, and if neither of those are a solvent, then you can assume that you're dealing with an epoxy interior surface without having to actually get yourself a bottle of MEK and try it out. So once you've identified what interior surface you have in terms of paint, then you can look at, well, what could I do with this moving forward? And that's a big question, because ultimately at some point, if you've got paint on your pool, at some point you're going to need to sandblast. So what you're trying to identify during this inspection of your concrete pool paint is, how far from sandblasting am I? And if you've got multiple layers and they're delaminating and it's cracking and the interior surface is rough and it looks bad, I mean, you probably need to sandblast, and that's going to be a lot of money, more money than painting itself will be. So more than double the cost if you need to go with a sandblast option, and sometimes even more than that, depending on the availability of labor in your area. And in some areas there's not a lot of people that do interior concrete pool surfaces, so it can get pretty pricey. If you look at the surface and it is painted, but it appears to be really good, everything's smooth, there's no cracks or delaminations or anything like that, there's a good chance that either there's only one layer of paint on there, or there's only been one kind of paint added. If there's been multiple different kinds and different layers, there's going to be problems with delamination, and that's really common with older concrete pools because people aren't necessarily knowledgeable about what kind of paint they have and what kind they're buying and what they're using, and there's a lot of stuff out there that's not really suitable for the application that people try to get away with, and you have no idea what previous owners have done to this pool. So if you see anything in terms of inconsistencies in the paint, or anything that looks other than pristine, pretty much perfect, I would probably stay away from that, because if your pool needs sandblasting, that's a big expense that you're going to have a hard time recovering on this new house that you're buying. So I would definitely stay away from that. Interior surface is like your big maintenance item on a concrete pool. It's like with a vinyl pool, it's the actual vinyl liner. It's the thing that provides the water retention, and you need a good one, and you can't just ignore it when it's failed or old. And oftentimes you can't just like, well, we'll just paint it and it'll be good. Well, maybe, but maybe it's already been painted to the point where it really can't accept any more paint, and you have to strip that away and sandblast and re-marbleite or replaster. And I mean, you could be talking many tens of thousands of dollars. So take a good hard look at that interior surface. If you've got a painted interior surface, it probably wasn't built that way. That pool was probably built to have some sort of cement like marbleite, marcite, or plaster on the interior surface, but at some point somebody cheaped out and went with a paint solution over top of that. And how long ago was that? What kind was used? It's hard to say. If it were me looking, I would be very skeptical. If I even suspect multiple layers of paint on a concrete pool, bring in an expert to look at it. Don't try to judge on yourself, because you're just going to get yourself in trouble with a hugely costly renovation that you don't want any part of. So don't buy somebody else's problem. Have it inspected by a professional first if you see multiple paint layers on the interior surface of your concrete pool.